Hello, Heath here with X Garage, and we're in the book club, video 3, and the problems of philosophy with Bertrand Russell. I'm going to keep this really, really short, and this is in chapter 4 on idealism. He basically just wants to critique idealism, idealism being that what can be known is only in our minds, that reality exists only in the mind. There might be a soft form idealism. I'm not an idealist scholar, so I'm not certain, but I think there is maybe what might be considered a moderate form where there may or may not be something outside of us, kind of like Immanuel Kant's position. But all that we truly know is in our mind, and thus what is real, anything that we can say is real, is in the mind. That which comes to our sense data is what is real. Now, I think true idealism would be that true reality is in the mind or in minds, in our mind or in God's mind, both. So what he's going to do is he wants to critique idealism, and he wants to also not dismiss it, which is right, because how he started chapter 1 and 2, he said that there's a distinction between how we apprehend reality and what reality is in itself. That we never rightly apprehend reality. We don't know the desk in front of me absolutely. Therefore, it really begs the question, do I know the desk? Do I have a real knowledge of it? Or is my senses, my data skewed? Is this just a dream? We could always doubt everything. And so he actually concludes the first 2 chapters with that real presupposition, starting point, that we can't know anything for certain, but we can take a common sense approach and just assume that there is real things outside of us, that we do have some apprehension of it. However, again, he must say that only in a probabilistic mood. As much as he wants to get dogmatic or have his doctrines about knowledge and about things being outside of us actually a realistic position. That position, the realist position, that there are actually objects that we perceive that actually form our sense data, that position is no more absurd than the idealist position. In fact, using empirical method, if that's our way of knowing, then arguably the idealist position is stronger than the realist. If it's just based on empirical data, because again, everything comes through sense data, the senses. So what we do know for certain is in our senses. But our senses can always be off and wrong. So what we do know for certain is that is always to be put in suspect of being wrong, which begs the question whether you know anything. So this goes back to my point earlier about unless God has revealed something to you and to me, to us as humans, to our consciences, unless he's written his law in our hearts and given us knowledge of himself in the world and in us, knowledge in ourselves, we can't actually know anything for certain. So I just want to say in this chapter on idealism, as much as he wants to critique it as from his speculative mode, from even an empirical scientific mode, you can never come to a conclusive truth position. And yet that's what he's trying to do. He wants to critique idealism, say it doesn't work, but at the end of the day, neither does realism from his epistemic starting point. From a starting point, again, which every human has to admit is a theistic, or not just a theistic, but a triune starting point, a God who is personal, who has revealed to us. He's not just off in the clouds, but he's a God who creates and orders such that knowledge can be drawn out, not only of the world, but even from ourselves. So I don't know where I was going there. I'm tired. As I said, I was going to keep this short. At the very end, he talks about this. He says, "It is often said, as though it were a self-evident truism, that we cannot know that anything exists which we do not know." I think he goes on to try to debunk this by saying that the word "know" here is equivocated, is used actually in 2 different senses, something along the lines that we cannot know something certain, that know with certainty that anything exists which we do not know. He takes as judgment, or or we cannot judge that anything exists which we do not know. Maybe as we say, know directly or from our own immediate experience. He uses an example of knowing that there's an emperor somewhere that he's never seen, but he can know that, infer that from other indirect reasons. I think that's what it was. Yeah, the emperor of China says, but I truly judge that he exists, even though he's not acquainted personally with the emperor. So basically experiential knowledge versus cognitive knowledge through other means or modes. However, I don't think that's necessarily, this could be interpreted, this idea that we cannot know that anything exists which we do not know. I think it would also go back to what I was saying earlier, that unless God has made known to us something, we cannot ever, that doesn't exist. It's not for us. It's kind of like Deuteronomy 29:29, which has been revealed is for us and our children forever. I'm totally misquoting that, but what has not been revealed is not, cannot be known for us. It's not for us, and so even as we discover things through nature, that's something God has revealed to us. He preceded it. He's encountered us by it, which is something he tried to argue in here, is that true knowledge comes only through encounter. Is really between our minds, or an act of our apprehension of something coming at us, something before us. And so this something before us, according to Scripture, is God's wisdom in the world, which confronts us in our consciousness, and we discover and we know. So this goes back to the point, unless God has revealed it, we cannot know anything for sure. And the only reason why we know that creation does reveal something is because Scripture has, God by His Spirit has confirmed that to us in Scripture. Now, we can know this by our consciousness apart from Scripture, but we can't know it for certain. Why is that? Well, because of the fall. Our rebellion has severed us from God Himself, and so we were never meant to explore the world autonomously, apart from the Maker. And so it's God who must witness to us, yes, this is my world. Yes, it's to be discovered. Yes, you are here to glorify me. But apart from that fellowship, even when we look at God's wisdom in the world, it's staring us down. We would end up in this mode of speculative thinking, never sure of anything, and that's part of the judgment from the fall. I mean, all the reformers talk about that. I did a bad job talking about that last point. I'm tired. That's it.